Thank you very much, Chairman Schaefer, members of the board, Commissioner Hammond. My name is Kerrie Dallman. I am a member of the State Council for Educator Effectiveness. I'm in full support of the recommendations that we've set forward to you, as well as Matt's earlier comments. But today I'm speaking to you as a teacher and association leader in Jefferson County, who has worked collaboratively with our district in the area of evaluation for a number of years now. As a teacher and a leader, I recognize my responsibility to ensure that our students are taught by great teachers and great leaders. I understand when students have ineffective teachers, there's really three victims, right? The students in that teacher's classroom, the colleagues who work alongside that teacher, and then that teacher themselves who could be perhaps more successful doing something else or improving. It is for this reason that we collaboratively developed a new evaluation system 4 years ago that differentiates levels of performance, and why we have partnered with the district on our strategic compensation initiative, which includes peer evaluation. 4 years ago, we negotiated a peer review panel, or an appeals process. We were one of the only remaining districts that still had just cause and due process provisions for probationary teachers. And during bargaining, it came to our attention that that was an issue for the district, understandably so. And we negotiated this review panel process in order to prevent the district from having to jump through a number of hoops to dismiss a probationary teacher. And so our review panel has 3 teachers and 3 administrators on it. And each teacher, each administrator represents elementary, middle, and high school. We chose to have a 3-by-3 panel because it creates a certain amount of face validity and confidence in the system. I understand that a 3-by-3 panel may not work for all school districts based upon size, but I do believe it's a decision that ought to be left to the local school district in collaboration with their association if there is one. Our review panel is advisory. It makes its recommendations to the superintendent, who has the final say. I'm proud to say that in every single occasion over the last 3 years, we've reached consensus on non-renewal decisions, which are far more higher stakes than just loss of non-probationary status, which is in this case. There have been 2 instances in which the appeals panel, our review panel, has overturned a principal's recommendation for non-renewal. And in each case, it was based on very substantive and material failure of the evaluation system and process. And even in those cases, the superintendent agreed with the panel's recommendation. Since the panel's inception, I believe it's really truly been an example of shared leadership and shared accountability. It has led and driven, in fact, improvements in our evaluation system across our district, as well as training and support for our principals and our teachers. Shared leadership requires structures that empower teachers and administrators to work together to make the most important decisions regarding educational experiences of our students and training of our staff. Shared leadership has to be coupled with shared accountability if we are to see the kinds of changes in evaluation and student achievement that we all want to see. I'd like you to support, or I ask you to support, the recommendations from the State Council. Mr. Lundeen, you had earlier asked if we were just overcomplicating things for superintendents by requiring an appeals process as a part of the state model system. And I think Katie addressed it earlier, but there's an important distinction in our recommendations to you. The State Council has recommended specifically around the state model system, the shalls, and that's where those live, and no district is required to use the state model appeals process. I understand that CASE doesn't believe that 2 years of partially effective should be appealable, even though it can lead to the same loss of non-probationary status that an ineffective rating would lead to. That's concerning. If the statute requires a process by which to appeal your loss of your non-probationary status as a result of 2 ineffective ratings, the council was very clear prior in our previous recommendations to you that partially effective, 2 years of that is considered the same as ineffective. And Dr. Serko was absolutely right. We included partially effective as a designation of trajectory. For a first-year teacher, you're likely not to come in necessarily as an effective teacher, but we want to see growth. So you may be rated in your first year as partially effective. The same goes for a veteran teacher who's been teaching for 20 years. They may have had great evaluations, but under this new system, it's new standards. And I expect that we'll see a lot of teachers experience a culture shock. And so a designation of partially effective there is a signal that there's something wrong and they need to work on it. I think language around the panel is really important, and I'd like you to consider the council's recommendations. And please consider that for the last 4 years in Jeffco, our panel has worked really well and is truly a shining example of what shared leadership and shared accountability can accomplish. Thank you.
Questions, Jane?
Yes, Kerrie, would you remind me that your group, your current
Review
strategic
panel?
compensation
Okay.
planning group and your review panel, have you dealt with both questions of dismissal and evaluation with ratings or categories? Or
So our review panel for the last 3 years, we negotiated it 4 years ago, but it's been in practice for 3 years, has been dealing with specifically evaluation and recommendation for non-renewal of probationary teachers. We intend to expand it as part of our strategic compensation work to include what's...
This appeal?
Yes.
This process, okay.
Other questions? Ms. Dallman, thank you.
Thank you.